Hey guys, I'm Corey with Camel ADV, and this is the installation video for the Honda Africa Twin Camel Brace peg support. So you're going to open your kit, and inside you're going to have either the standard skid plate or the plus skid plate. And this one has got the kick up on the end here to protect the 45-degree bend on the back of the exhaust. We've got a frame mount. We've got a tab for the foot peg. And we've got a fastener pack. So the first thing that we need to do to install this is take off the factory exhaust. You can do it all in one shot, which I prefer to do, or you can do it in a couple of pieces. If you do it in a couple of pieces, you need to take off the heat shield and separate the muffler from the header pipe, and then we're going to take the header pipe off the front of the motor. If you have somebody that can give you a hand with this, that is definitely preferable to wrestling around yourself. So the exhaust is held on by 4 acorn nuts, 2 on each pipe. Before you can take the exhaust off, you'll have to take your skid plate off. Given the wide variety of skid plates that are available, I'm not going to go through that. It's going to be different for every different brand of skid plate. But you take your skid plate off, and then we're going to grab these 4 acorn nuts. We're going to come back to the oxygen sensor and unclip it here. And then on the tab just below the coolant bracket here, if you have bigger hands, you may want to take your exhaust pedal off. Just gives you a little more room to work. And this can be a little bit sticky, especially if you have been riding off-road and your bike's got some mud on it, and if you haven't had it off before, it can be a bit of a challenge. I suggest when you put it back together that you put some dielectric grease on it, as it can get quite dry. And you may need some pliers to squeeze these clips together. We're just going to use a flat blade screwdriver. Just give it a push, and then that's free. So once that's done, we can come back to the muffler, and we can grab this bolt here. And then we've got one more bolt to take out, which is right here. So with this bolt loosened, the whole exhaust can come off. There can be some wiggling to get the header pipes off the studs at the front, particularly if you have crash bars. Different brands are a little bit trickier to get the exhaust out and around, so we're going to have some wiggling to do. Easier done than said. So we're going to set this aside. And this is our foot peg mount bracket. It's also exhaust hanger, pad for your center stand if you run one, and the pivot point for your rear brake lever. So the bracket that we have is going to go on here, and then our skid plate. So we're going to take this bolt out first. You're going to open up your fastener pack. Your bag may say 1 of 2 or 2 of 2, and you probably only have 1 bag. Long story, I won't get into it. What's in here is 3 spacers. You got a 3 mil, a 6 mil, and an 11 mil. 2 16 mil countersunk bolts. We've got 2 shoulder bolts, 1 25 mil hex, 4 nylocks, 4 M8 flat washers, 1 M10 flat washer. We're going to take some blue Loctite, and we're going to put it back on the bolt that we just took out. And take our frame bracket. There's 1 M10 hole here and 1 M8 hole. So we're going to go through the 10 mil hole, and we're going to put a washer on the back side, not the front. There's a cutout section here that the washer drops into to bring everything level. I'm going to put that on, and then we're going to tighten this up. So we're going to tighten this not full tight, just so we can still move this bracket around a little bit. You're going to take your skid plate, whether you have the Plus or the regular, and we've got our countersunk bolts. And we're going to slide these guys in. We're not going to put Loctite on them yet. We're going to snug these up, not full torque. So this is still able to move. Then we're going to remove our peg. Yours is going to have a pin through here with a cotter key. So you're going to straighten out the cotter key and slide the pin out. Make sure you don't lose the spring. Make sure you're wearing safety glasses when you do this. This has been on and off so many times. I've actually got a bolt in here now instead of the pin. So this is going to be a little bit different for you. I find the springs on these pegs are a lot softer than most, so you don't have to worry about them going flying. They also have a pocket that they drop into. So you're going to set your foot peg aside. So you're going to take your tab and your plate and the two shoulder bolts, and they're going to drop in like that. And then one of our nylocks. And then we're going to tighten these up just so there's still a little bit of movement. So take our Allen head cap screw, our 11mm spacer, and one of the nylock nuts, and put the spacer between the tab and the foot peg mount. Slide the bolt through, put the nut on, and then we're going to tighten this up. With this tightened up, we know that everything is in the proper spot. We can tighten up these shoulder bolts. We're going to take a pencil and you're going to mark on your bracket where our stainless bracket goes. And then you're going to come up to the front bolt here and you're going to give this a final tighten. And with that done, this bracket shouldn't move. We're able to drill our back hole here without worrying about this being out of place. But we did draw the line with the pencil in case this does get bumped. So we're going to take the two bolts out of the bottom, and we're going to take this bolt out of the peg. And now we can drill that hole. So this is going to get drilled 8mm or 5/16. And then we're going to take our M825 hex bolt, slide that through, one of our flat washers and nylock nut, stick that on the back side. And tighten away. And with that done, we can put the exhaust back on. And once we have the front buttoned up, we can put the rear mounting bolt in. We put a dab of Loctite on here too. The front bolt's off of the engine. Should get anti-seize because it's very hot, and of course mud and water and all that stuff. If they seize on there, you have a real hard time getting them out. So every time I have them out, put some copper coat or anti-seize on. Everything else basically gets blue Loctite. Now we're going to do the middle exhaust hanger. With that done, we can go ahead and put our skid plate back on. And this time when we put in our countersunk bolts, they're going to get Loctite. We're going to come to our O2 sensor. I'm going to plug it back in and connect the wiring back to the plastic bracket here. So now we've got our gap here that was achieved with this spacer when we bolted it all together. This one is just for doing the installation, so we're going to set that aside. And we've got our 3mm and our 6mm. And then we've got our foot peg. So different foot pegs have different sizes here. So if you have a billet aluminum peg, it's going to be thicker, generally speaking. If you're running the factory pegs, they're going to be a little bit smaller here. So you're just going to use whichever spacer fits best. You want the tightest fit without any binding. We're going to take our Allen socket bolt again and a flat washer. We're going to take our peg and we're going to take the 3mm spacer and put it in between. And you may have to do some wiggling on the skid plate to get this in. So we're going to put our spacer in. We're going to take our nut and get it started on here. We've got a little bit of a gap, so we're kind of partway between the 3mm and the 6mm. For this to be the strongest it can be, we want all of these parts as close as they can be without causing binding for the foot peg. So what we're going to do here is tighten up this bolt a little bit to pull this closer together and check and see. So we're dragging a little bit now. So we're going to come down and we're going to loosen these shoulder bolts off. We have a little bit of a back and forth dance here. To get these in the right spot. So you can see when I loosened these, the peg came down. So like I said, we just want this as tight as we can without causing any binding on the peg. So that's a little tight. So that's what we're looking for there. And then we're going to come down and tighten up these shoulder bolts again. Check our peg again, make sure it's moving nice and free. And then we can put our brake lever back on. So there's the slit in the clamp here. And then right here, there's a dot. So when you put this on, you're going to line the dot up with the slot in the splines. And that will give you the correct height for the pedal. And then we're going to put our pedal bolt back in. And you may have to wiggle to get this lined up to get the bolt started. And now your peg mount is protected from the front from hits. If you take a low side or drop into a rut, it doesn't get hit. And we're tying back into the frame, so the whole structure is now enclosed on all three sides and is several times stronger than the factory piece. You can see our very well used skid plate here. You can see that we're actually about a 1/16 of an inch higher than the skid plate, so it's a nice flat bottom. Depending on the brand of skid plate, you may need to trim a corner to get this to mount. This is the SW Motec. There wasn't any trimming required for it, but some of them do come back a little bit further, and you're just going to need to cut it out around here to get that to clear. So that wraps up our install video for the Camel Brace for the Honda Africa Twin. If you have any questions or concerns, you can always get a hold of me. info@cameltank. Thanks for watching.